Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to the Asia Tech Podcast. Rebecca Schwabe, a founder and COO of Saigon AI, is with us today. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming to the show. Let's give the listeners a little bit of your background for some context.
My background actually starts in finance. I worked in finance for about 10 years.
Cool.
And then I pivoted to the tech field. I started while I was doing finance. I helped with all of the Linux servers. I helped with the just maintenance and setting up. And we did a lot of website hosting in the first company I was in. And so I was able to set up DNS and all that other stuff. And yeah, it was a lot of fun until you got a, page at 2 a.m. that the server was down. That was no fun. But anyway, we pivoted then to product, which was a lot more fun. And I've done some design. I've done a lot of coding. I actually took courses in blockchain because we had a product on blockchain. Yeah, so that was fun. And then I pivoted to data science. And I've been doing this for many years.
When I was at Morgan Stanley, I started off in the back office in the controllers department, but I knew that tech was going to change the way these big financial services companies existed and made money. So I joined a tech team that directly supported the fixed income business. And I was actually a Unix systems administrator for a floor of like 100 and something Sun Spark stations, which anybody who's listening to this now that's like under 35 has no idea what that even means.
But right.
learning from a sysadmin perspective, I think is a really good way to understand like the real impact of tech. And you reminded me because you said you got a page at 2:00 in the morning. I mean, every single day. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. Look, let's talk about, and where do you live now, by the way?
I'm in Vietnam now.
And how long have you been living in Vietnam?
I've been here for 7 years.
So what prompted the move to Vietnam?
Well, we were looking for, my partner and I were looking for a new place to go where the tech boom has not happened yet.
Got it.
So we were researching Southeast Asia, and a couple countries came up, but Vietnam came up highest, with Ho Chi Minh and Da Nang being the top cities. And we came to Ho Chi Minh City, and we met with business people, we met with universities, and we just talked with a whole lot of people for a month and realized that this was where the next tech boom would be. And we came here, and originally we set up to support a US company that we started, and then it grew into its own thing. And so now we have our own company here.
So after living in Vietnam for 7 years, right, and making this decision after doing research around like where the best place would be because the sort of tech boom hadn't happened yet, if you look back to where you thought you were back then and where you are today, do you feel like you made the right decision?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The country is amazing, and it's growing up, and it wants to play in the international market.
So again, I want to share something with you. When I was in college in 1983 to 1987, which feels like 700 years ago, one of my professors, and maybe the favorite professor on campus, was actually a Vietnam War veteran. And if you think about 1983, it was only really 8 years after the war ended, which as a kid, you didn't really understand. My first time in Vietnam was in 1991. And Americans weren't even allowed there. So now that I see what's happening there, particularly the tech boom, I'm amazed, but also really proud about what they've been able to accomplish. And I think it surprises a lot of people who are of a certain age who just like, Vietnam, really? But I think what you say is actually true, and I love it. Let's talk about Saigon AI, what it is, what it's meant to be, and what the long-term goals are.
Yes. So Saigon AI, we focus on data science and AI design through implementation. We do a lot of predictive models, of course, in everything that we're doing, but we're also implementing new technologies, new AI into business process where it makes sense. I always talk about, everybody goes, oh, I want ChatGPT, put that in my business. And
Right.
it's like, okay, but how are you going to use it?
Right.
And they go, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, that's what we have to talk through.
Right.
But we do everything from auditing of other companies, like their data science teams. We audit their models to make sure that everything is from EDA to data drift to the result, that everything lines up with the truth of what the data is saying. Our big push is truth and explainability. If you can't explain it,
Yeah.
then it's not good. Yeah.
Exactly. So you brought up ChatGPT. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but I'm always curious, right? We're a little bit more than a year out from when it was kind of unleashed on the world. What do you think the difference is that it's made besides people just asking you like, how do I use this in my business or just implement it for me? What did it do for the interest? Because Saigon AI is not a new company. It's been around for what, 7 years, right? So I
Yes,
didn't do that either. I didn't do thumbs down,
that's okay.
but it's been around for a long time. Have you seen a massive spike in interest? And if you have, like, how could you characterize that?
Well, what we've seen is that it's gotten so much publicity
Yeah.
that everybody is just going, I need to have it with no background of what it is or how it works.
Right.
And we have to talk through, and then you have the education sector, which is scared of it. And so we're partnered with a couple universities. And so we do like demystifying and what do we call it? Canceling out the noise.
Right.
And we talk through and say, okay, this is what it is. This is how it works. And these are the use cases that we see it being good for. But in the end, it's good input. If you put good input, you get good outcome. But if you put in bad input, you get bad outcome. And it's making things up. And that's the whole key, is it's not truth. It's just making things up. So we do see it working really well in marketing though, because it can help wordsmith really well. We don't put any code into it because obviously then it has it and learns on it. So
Right.
yeah, I know a lot of programmers like to use it to help enhance their code, and we don't let that happen here at all. But
Curious what you think about these recent lawsuits, I think, from at least the New York Times suing OpenAI saying, we don't want you training your models on our articles. I wasn't even thinking about asking you about it, but you were talking about demystifying this stuff for universities and also not putting code in because you don't want to give that code away and let the AI train on it. What do you think is going to
right.
happen here in that respect?
I think that it's going to have to be a lot more transparent on what data they are using, on how they're using it, because there is there are copyright infringement issues.
Yeah.
And if you put in and you're looking, let's just say you're looking for white papers, the whole thing is it makes everything up. So it even makes up the numbers and everything. But if you go to that, it's fake. So the problem that we're having is we don't know what it's doing and how it's getting to where it ends up for
Right.
you.
Right.
And that's going to have to change. They're going to have to be more transparent.
So one of the things that differentiates a great team is like how you assemble that team and how you get the right team for your projects, in AI and data science. How do you focus on that?
For a lot of our team, we have a very rigid interview process. Where we're looking is at, we like to get younger, and you're going to have to get younger here if
Yeah.
you want data science. We look at the younger right out of uni or still in last year of uni. And our interview process is one where we ask a lot of questions about really vetting character. To us, it's more about the character.
Interesting.
If they have the skill set or have the raw talent, because you're not going to get a 4 or 5 year experienced data scientist here. It's too
Right.
new.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have to, go from ground up a lot of times, but we also look for people who are on the business side, because those in international business and economics with high statistics skills, we can teach the tech if they have the raw skill. But yeah, our interview process is focusing more on character, because what we value the most is teachable. Really, that's it. If they're teachable, we can use that. Teachable with raw skill.
Can you comment on the sort of technical education in Vietnam in places where people may not understand, like actually how great it is and what the programming and programmer landscape is, or just the technical skill abilities in the country are?
Yeah, well, I can tell you from 7 years ago, the highest or most advanced programming that they were doing was PHP. And in the last 7 years, I mean, they have really pushed the tech for Python, for making sure that their students understand the models and how they work, and going into even robotics there's huge degree programs for robotics. Now, RMIT is here, so that's the international school. But even the local schools, they're all teaching higher advanced. So we have a school that we're partnered with, and they even have a smart city department for teaching smart city. So they've really come a long way.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I think they've leapfrogged a couple of the other countries in this region in a way that would have
Very
been
quickly.
surprising, like you said, like 5 to 7 years ago. Because if you look at where some of the other countries are, even the larger ones, right, they were nowhere near where they are today, and they've just
Mhm.
completely leapfrogged them.
Yep.
What? How do you, as a team, stay ahead? Like, where do you find the time to keep up to date on stuff?
That's the challenge. That is the challenge. And a lot of what I do is more research, and finding out what skill sets that we're lacking so that we can train. And I have to say, we have a list of what we're going to train on, and I think we did 2 last year. It's tough.
It's
It's
hard.
really tough when you're running the business and then you're trying to stay ahead. We do have a AI researcher on staff. We have a mathematician on staff, and we have a couple people on a team that are just now starting, where they're going to be on the research side. So it's not falling all on my partner and I.
Can we talk about a little bit about getting women and females into technology? And the reason why I ask is because there are legacy reasons, and we can argue about this a lot in large parts of the Western world for why there aren't a lot of women in technology. None of those reasons are good. But I almost feel like Vietnam and Southeast Asia are a little bit of greenfields, right? Like what I see in Thailand is there's nothing stopping a woman from doing what would be traditionally considered in the West a man's job. Like in some ways, like Thai women blow Thai men away. I shouldn't say that out loud, but it's actually really true. And I'm just curious about what you're doing to encourage women, because it's so early there still, right? There's no
Mhm.
stigma or any of that kind of stuff. How do you get them involved in what's going to be the future of their country in tech?
A lot of what we do is encouraging them, if they have high math skills, and have the patience. Technology, that's a patience game, that, because it's constantly changing. So it's like, oh, I just learned this. Oh, it's obsolete. Let's go to the next thing. But anyway, we look at that and we encourage them. When we first came here, and I met some people in the park, because that's where the students go to practice their English. And we met a young lady, and she was in tech. She was freshman, and she had professors telling her she didn't belong.
Really?
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And so we encouraged her. And when she got to year 3 and 4, she interned with us. And the company culture that we've created, even, we're 50-50, male, female. And the culture that we've created here is to support each other. and to encourage each other, and it's a safe place. So what we do is we encourage them. We say, look, we can, even if you're not going to work for us, come intern, train with us, and see what it could be like. And what I tell our ladies here is, I've already fought the battle for you.
Right. Right. I'm
I
in
fought
charge
hard.
anyway.
That's right. I fought hard to be where I am in technology, because we had issues, what, 96, 97, when I was starting in tech, and I would have customers say, no, I want to talk to a man.
Right.
And it's like, seriously? They're going to give you the same answer I just gave you, which they did. And, but I said, I tell them I fought that battle already. So come and see how you can stand firm and be confident in your skills. And we also have to do a lot of training with that, where we take them to do speaking engagements at universities, the ladies that are with us. And I purposely pick the ladies to come with me because I think it's important.
I was doing a recording for another one of my shows last month or the month before. It was probably in November. One of the guys that was from Japan was talking about diversity and equality, right? And he made a point that in Japan, it was actually really hard because women would reach a certain position and he'd say, look, we want you to get promoted. We want to give you more to do and stuff like that. And they would say, I'm getting a lot of pressure from my family, both my parents, but also my immediate family, not to do that. I'm satisfied where I am. Do you see anything similar like that in Vietnam? Or again, are you early enough where you can disintermediate that?
Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of that, but what we are seeing a lot of pressure is they have pressure. The young ladies have pressure to be married by 30.
Really?
They do, because there is a stigma here that after 30, you're just not marriage material,
I got it.
which is so wrong in many ways. But they do have that pressure. Where it's changing, though, and where this new generation is that they know that they need two incomes. It's not like, it's like every other country. You need two incomes to survive. Even though cost of living is low here, it's not that low. And so based on, with the economic scale of salary and everything, it's really the same as everywhere else. So they do find that they do need to work, and they are encouraged to work. However, once they have children, that changes a bit. And because there isn't like a lot of daycare or help or things like that. And they do get pressure to stay home. One of the things that we've been working on is, how can we retain that talent? Because like I said, we have a lot of young people here, but they're going to start getting married and having families. And we're actually putting into place some things where we can encourage them to maybe stay on remote part-time, keep their skills up, keep working, so that when their kids are old enough to go to school and they want to come back, that they're not behind and that they still feel like they can.
Right. And to a certain extent, like you said, the technology is moving so fast, right? So even if they come in 4 years later or 5 years later, kindergarten, whatever it is, right, when their kids are in school, if they have a base that they've been working on or maintaining, they should be able to quickly catch up and kind of jump right back in, particularly if they're remote, right? Because all it really is having a keyboard, a really high-speed internet connection, which in Vietnam is quite prevalent.
It is.
And then just the desire to do it, yeah?
That's right. That's right. And that's the key, though. And if they don't have the desire, I mean, that's okay. I understand that.
Perfectly fine.
I'm a mama too. I just continued working. But that was my choice, and they have a choice as well. But we try to encourage that. We also encourage further education. So we have a program where we even help with tuition if they've been with us for 3 years, and we help them with tuition if they want to do like a master's, and they can continue working, and we'll support them to do, to as slow as they need or as fast as they want. And we actually have one young lady doing that right now, and she's still working, but she's also taking classes.
What kind of, I was on a recording a couple of days ago with a guy from India who was setting up and running a pretty big company there. And I said to him, what kind of joy do you get? because he was talking about mentoring startup founders, right, that are much younger than he is. He's in his 50s. And I was like, no, he's late 40s, excuse me. He's going to get mad when he hears me say that. And I said, what kind of joy do you get? And he said, joy's a good word, but I would change the word to fulfillment. So how fulfilled do you feel when, not just for the cows, but for the guys as well, where you can take somebody and change their lives inside the context of Saigon AI?
Yeah, it's undescribable because it's what gets you up in the morning, you know? It's what keeps you going, because we actually have a young gentleman just went off to a master's degree in Canada. And, it was, he interned here and then he worked here, and, it's just so exciting to see them grow. And when he first started, he couldn't understand me at all. He could not understand my English at all, and I could not understand his English. And, and then he left and we were understanding each other and working on projects together. And it's just an amazing feeling. And even we have staff that, like, they interned here and they worked for a few years and they went on to do something else. They went on to FPT or to Zallo or to one of these bigger companies. And oh my goodness, it's so cool to see them thrive.
I mean, look, when I joined Morgan Stanley in 1987, we used to call it Morgan Stanley University, right? So this idea of, like, you're not mad when great people leave. You're like, we trained them, they killed it, and they wanted to do something bigger. You just sat there and thought, that was awesome. You didn't think, like, that person is mean to us for we trained them and then they left. You're just like, yeah, we did it. Because it opens up positions for other people to come in and then learn more and impact more lives.
Exactly.
Is there one thing that sticks out to you, like, in the past year? Now, we're right at the beginning of 2024, so 2023 is in the books. Is there one thing or a couple of things that stick out for you from last where you just thought, oh, that's how I can use this as well? Do you know what I mean? Like some epiphany moment where you're like, this is going to get even cooler?
Yes, a couple.
Go for it.
But sure. Well, what we've learned a lot of, and we've done a lot of behavioral projects, so behavioral data projects. And so now we're looking at, okay, how we can now implement that into a customer that we have their product in order to help with scheduling for healthcare, which is a big problem right now. And so we can go, okay, so if we can analyze how the scheduler does their job, we could now give better predictions of, okay, they go in, they want to schedule, let's just give them, hey, this is what you did before, a couple things, here's some suggestions based on, distance of worker and things like that. But we get to implement and mesh some of those projects, which is really nice.
When I was in the stock market, which I have not been in a long time, right? I used to go run around Tokyo with one of my buddies with whom I worked. We used to see the names of the companies that we were trading up on billboards, and we would challenge each other to come up with the stock codes off the top of our heads because they were numbers, right? And every sector had its own numbers, like 6758, I believe, was Sony. The 7203 was Toyota, so 7206 was Honda, something like that, right? We could never get the business out of our head because we were just surrounded by it. And I wonder, like, in this space, like data science, and artificial intelligence is, your brain is constantly processing the data. How do you get away, or can you get away from this idea of, I think we can use this? Do you know what I mean? Even when you're not at work.
Yeah, I don't know that concept at all.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Because that's the problem.
It.
No, right there, that's the problem. The problem is that you're always looking, you're always analyzing. And I mean, I tell people this, like, my drive to and from the office hurts my head. Here's why it hurts my head. Because we're on motorbike. You've been to Vietnam. You know how this goes. So I'm driving motorbike and you're constantly doing calculations and predictions in your head so that you don't wreck, right? So, because it happens all the time. And I say, just, what would be great is, if I had an app that with a camera that could analyze this model that would tell me,
don't go there.
Don't go there, exactly. But that's just a funny example. But no, it's always in your head and you're always thinking forward, because especially as business owners, that's your job,
Yeah.
is to think, what's the next thing? What are we going to do? What are we going to do next? How are we going to fit into this trend, this new trend? Because one of the other new trends is synthetic data. And so we've been talking about that, where if you don't have enough data, if you don't have enough raw data to do a predictive model,
Right.
there's ways that you can compensate for that. But wouldn't it be better if you actually could create synthetic data? And there's companies out there doing that. And for us, I mean, that's important.
What is synthetic data though?
So it's fake data that looks real. It's not duplicated data. So when you're doing a model and you don't have enough data, a lot of times you use duplication to get enough, right? And it's not great, but what the synthetic data is, and people are starting to do this, is that it's actual real data based on a combination of what you already have.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting way to do things. And it does help with models, and it makes them more reliable that way.
So what other trends do you see coming?
We see an upward trend for explainability, which is a lot of what we do here, where people are going to want to know, okay, what was your entire process? So that we know how you got to where you got to, so that we can validate each step. So we do see people are getting smarter, which with everything. When there's a boom of anything, then people get smarter and know how to ask better questions. And then we have to be able to answer those. But I think there's also going to be some more regulations coming out on everything AI. I do.
So if you could make like 2 regulations or 1 regulation, what would they be?
I think one of the regulations is the transparency. We have to be transparent with financials as big companies. They have to be transparent with financials and where things are going. And
Right.
I worked with some nonprofits. I mean, we have to be very transparent. I think that trend is going to come into play with AI as well. People are going to want to be able to see more than what they're seeing. I don't know. I'm not a fan of regulations, of course, but I know that if you're not ethical in what you're doing, we have to put regulations into place to help those who are not.
So if I'm a big company in Vietnam, right, and this just loops back to something you said at the beginning, right? I don't want to put my code into OpenAI because I don't want to give away whatever sort of coding secrets that I have. You said like LLMs, people are going to stop focusing on them a little bit, but I want to be a little bit contrarian here. I think what's going to happen is that a lot of these big companies, if they haven't already started doing this, are going to build their own or use like off-the-shelf large language models and only train it on their own data. And even if it's just for marketing, right? So they take all their own internal data, all their own internal data science, all their own internal statistics, and then create sort of constant new marketing data off of that. We know this, so we can help you do that. Or we can personalize our own products by using this information. They can then be very transparent about that because it's only their data, and they're only training it on data that they know, and they're never giving out that data to the public, right? It's almost like having your own private blockchain. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So do you see that happening as well? And are you in the position to be able to help companies do that and implement that?
We're actually implementing for ourselves. So yes, absolutely. We have the ability to do that. And I agree. Yeah, that's where it's going to go, because people want to know what's going into things. So, and they want to keep control of their own copyright and their own IP. And so I agree with that is where it's going. And that's why we're implementing for ourselves.
Okay. Rebecca Schwabe, a founder and COO of Saigon AI. Thank you so much for coming and doing that today.
Thank you very much.